Greetings, family. Peace be to all. Welcome back. I am your host, Supreme L, and I welcome you. I want to get into something, excuse me, before we get into the show here. I want to read something that should be done in all meetings, and this is a meeting I consider, because it's going out to all, and I hope it reaches you and meets you well. All right, it's Friday, January 15th, 1929, and the Prophet warns all Muslims, governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We're for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We're for love, truth, peace, freedom. And when these principles are violated, justice then must take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card button, cease wearing their turban or fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet, Noble Jew Ali, Sheik Sharif Abdul Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet therefore is sending out divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sins. By order of Prophet Sheik Sharif Abdul Ali, Noble Jew Ali. And there's one more that I would like to read, and it's going to be, where did I find that? Okay, there's this one right here. I'm going to pull it up and see which one is it, family. Give me a second. Pardon me. It is. Okay, and there's a plea, the prophet plea to the nation Friday, March 1st, 1929. We have that one. We have general laws as said by the prophet, stated Friday, November 9th, 1928. And then, I think it's that one. General laws as said by the prophet, Friday, November 9th, 1928. Every temple and the head is to function by words, deeds, and actions, imitating the prophet, especially when teaching a group of Moors or any group of Moors. These are the general laws. The supreme laws will be handed to you later. The head of all temples are to submit a report monthly of all finances. The heads of temples are to refrain from all wrathful words, profanity, in the mildest form from all the members of his or her temple. They must live the life of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and refrain from all alcoholic liquors or any other harmful possibility that will terminate to destroy peace of any other of the divine principles. They are not to contribute to anything that will cause the public to disagree with him or her, the public. And for one to lead a group of Moors, you must keep your house clean with good deeds, kind words. Your wives, brethren, must hear good words, kind words, and must know of your good deeds. If there are children, you must see to their support. Follow this divine principle, for if you don't restrict to this divine principle, then you are not a true Moor. And the heads are not to charge for membership. And this is what I want to get to right here. Follow this divine principle, for if you don't restrict to this divine principle, then you are not a true Moor. And the heads are not to charge for membership or to overcharge for cards, buttons, or for anything issued by the prophet. Those who contribute to either of the preceding or are not Moors, but robbers. Membership, sisters and brothers, is free, not only here, but all over the world. And that goes back to what we were saying, nationality is free. To know who you are is free. No one should be charging you for a membership or to become a membership of any club or anything like that, saying that they're Moors. Or because I heard people charging $3,500 up to $50,000 just to be a member or become a member of a Moor temple or nationality, which is false. Here the prophet says free. Membership is free. To know who you are is free. And it says, membership, sister and brother, is free not only here but all over the world. The button is 25 cents, the card is 25 cents, and 1 month's due is paid. Every member pays 50 cents a month for dues. This money goes towards the support of the temple. This, if not paid, does not entitle you to the protection that is provided for you. And especially if you are working or in the position to work, if you neglect to fulfill this small duty assigned you, how can you rightfully expect money or the help when you are sick or otherwise disabled? The Prophet, Sheik Sharif Abdul Ali, Prophet, Noble True Ali. I just wanted to throw that out there. There's much more here that we have in this humanity. It's one of the appendages I have to speak on, and we'll get into some more of that later. But the main topic I want to talk about today, and it won't be long, it won't tally you long, and there's going to be a continuing, because this one is a lot of pages, but we're going to break it down for you and come back into another class. But speaking on the economy and the economic ways, and bringing our family, brothers and sisters, sons, daughters, into the realizations of what's really going on here. All right, and we're going to be speaking about Congress McFadden's speech on the Federal Reserve corruption, and this is Congressman Lewis Thomas McFadden, and that's McFadden, Lewis Thomas McFadden. All right, and Goes on May 23rd, 1933, Congressman Louis McFadden brought formal charges against the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve Bank System, the Comptroller of the Currency, and the Secretary of the United States Treasury for numerous criminal acts, including but not limited to conspiracy, fraud, unlawful conversion, and treason. And we all know what the punishment is for treason until this day, and it is death. The petition for articles of impeachment was thereafter referred to the Judiciary Committee and has yet to be acted on. So, this electronic booklet or the paper should be reprinted and reposted and sent out to everywhere. And if I can get copies made, I will send them out to you. But you can easily look it up. This is in the records. Okay, Congressman McFadden on the Federal Reserve Corporation remarks in Congress, 1934, an astounding exposure. Congressman McFadden's speech on the Federal Reserve Corporation. Quotations from several speeches made on the floor of the House of Representatives by the Honorable L.T McFadden of Pennsylvania. Mr. McFadden, due to his having served as chairman of the Banking and Currency Committee for more than 10 years, was the best posted man on these matters in America and was in a position to speak with authority of the vast ramifications of this gigantic private credit monopoly. As representative of a state which was among the first to declare its freedom from foreign money tyrants, it is fitting that Pennsylvania, the cradle of liberty, be again given the credit for producing a son that was not afraid to hurl defiance in the face of the money bond. Whereas Mr. McFadden was elected to the high office on both the Democratic and Republican tickets, there can be no accusations of partisanship lodged against him. Because these speeches are set out in full in the congressional record, they carry weight that no amount of condemnation on the part of private individuals could hope to carry. In quotations, a remark. It is well enough that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. Henry Ford. Louis T. McFadden's speech in the House of Representatives, June 10, 1932. Mr. Chairman, at the present session of Congress, we have been dealing with emergency situations. We have been dealing with the effect of things rather than with the cause of things. In this particular discussion, I shall deal with some of the causes that led up to these proposals. There are underlying principles which are responsible for conditions such as we have at the present time, and I shall deal with one of these in particular, which is tremendously important in the consideration that you are now giving to this bill. The Federal Reserve, a corrupt institution. Mr. Chairman, we have in this country one of the most corrupt institutions the world has ever known. I refer to the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks, hereinafter called the Fed. The Fed has cheated the government of these United States and the people of the United States out of enough money to pay the nation's debt. The depredations and inquiries of the Fed has cost enough money to pay the national debt several times over. Mr. McFadden's speech. This evil institution has impoverished and ruined the people of the United States, has bankrupted itself, and has practically bankrupted our government. It has done this through the defects of the law under which it operates, through the maladministration of that law by the Fed, and through the corrupt practices of the moneyed vultures who control it. Some people think that the Federal Reserve Banks are United States government institutions. They are not government institutions, in bold letters coming from Louis McFadden speech, and I say that again. Some people think that the Federal Reserve Banks are United States government institutions. They are not government institutions. period. They are private credit monopolies which prey upon the people of these United States for the benefit of themselves and their foreign customers, foreign and domestic speculators and swindlers, and rich and predatory money lenders. In the dark crew of financial pirates, there are those who would cut a man's throat to get $1 out of his pocket. There are those who send money into states to buy votes to control our legislation. And there are those who maintain international propaganda for the purpose of deceiving us and of wielding us into the granting of new secessions which will permit them to cover up their past misdeeds and set again in motion their gigantic train of crime. Those 12 private credit monopolies were deceitfully and disloyally foisted upon this country by the bankers who came here from Europe and repaid us our hospitality by undermining our American institutions. Those bankers took money out of this country to finance Japan in a war against Russia. They created a reign of terror in Russia with our money in order to help that war along. They instigated the separate peace between Germany and Russia and thus drove a wedge between the Allies in World War I, financing Trotsky's and instigating the Russian Revolution, advent of communism. They financed Trotsky's mass meetings of discontent and rebellion in New York. They financed Trotsky's passage from New York to Russia so that he might assist in the destruction of the Russian Empire. They fomented and instigated the Russian Revolution and placed a large fund of American dollars at Trotsky's disposal in one of their branch banks in Sweden so that through him Russian homes might be thoroughly broken up and Russian children flung far and wide from their natural protectors. They have since begun breaking up of American homes and the disposal of American children. Mr. Chairman, there should be no partisanship in matters concerning banking and currency affairs in this country, and I do not speak with any. Okay, and then there goes on to speak about Wilson deceived to establish the Federal Reserve, and they're talking about Woodrow Wilson. It has been said that President Wilson was deceived by the intentions of these bankers and by the philanthropic poses they assumed. It has been said that when he discovered the manner in which he had been misled by Colonel House, he turned against that busybody, that holy monk of the financial empire, and showed him the door. He had the grace to do that, and in my opinion, he deserves great credit for it. But the damage has already been done at that point. Back to it. President Wilson was a victim of deception, or so they say, but again, my opinion only. And we continue. When he came to the presidency, he had certain qualities of mind and heart which entitled him to a high place in the councils of this nation. But there was one thing he was not, and which he never aspired to be. He was not a banker. He said that he knew very little about banking. It was therefore on the advice of others that the inquiries, Federal Reserve Act, the death warrant of American liberty, became law in his administration. The iniquitous Federal Reserve Act. That's what it is. INIQUITOUS. Federal Reserve Act, the death of American liberty. All right, and then it goes to say the Eldridge Bill, ALDRICH, the Eldridge Bill, in 1912. Remember, 1912, and then a year later, Sheik Sharif Abdul Ali, Noble Drew Ali, set up the Canaanite temple 1913. We can correlate that. In 1912, the National Monetary Association, or the MNA, under the chairmanship of the late Senator Nelson W. Eldridge, made a report and presented a vicious bill called the National Reserve Association Bill. This bill is usually spoken of as the Aldrich Bill. Senator Aldrich did not write the Aldrich Bill. He was the tool, if not the accomplice, of the European bankers who for nearly 20 years had been scheming to set up a central bank in this country, and who in 1912 had spent and were continuing to spend vast sums of money to accomplish their purpose. The Democratic Party promises not to create a central bank. The Aldrich Bill was condemned in the platform upon which Theodore Roosevelt was nominated in the year 1912. And in the same year when Woodrow Wilson was nominated, the Democratic platform, as adopted at the Baltimore Convention, expressly stated, "We were opposed to the Aldrich Bill for a central bank." This was plain language. The men who ruled the Democratic Party then promised the people that if they were returned to power, there would be no central bank established here, while they held the reins of government. 13 months later, that promise was broken, and the Wilson administration, under the tutelage of those sinister Wall Street figures who stood behind Colonel House, established here in our free country the worm-eaten monarchical institution of the King's Bank, to control us from the top downward and from the cradle to the grave. Consequences of the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve Bank destroyed our old and characteristic way of doing business. It discriminated against our one-name commercial paper, the finest in the world, and it set up the antiquated two-name paper, which is the present curse of this country, and which wrecked every country which has ever given it scope. It fastened down upon the country the very tyranny from which the farmers of the framers, this is kind of broken up language, this is old paper, but I'm gonna write it out if I have to. But again, it fastened down upon the country the very tyranny from which the framers of the Constitution sought to save us. We need to go back and check that Constitution and let you know that that Constitution doesn't apply to everybody. But that's another story, another topic that we'll get into. But just follow along and just, apply it to you, and you're going to put your thinking fez or thinking turban on. President Jackson's time. And we're talking about Andrew Jackson. One of the greatest battles for the preservation of this republic was fought out here in Jackson's time, when the Second Bank of the United States, founded on the same false principles of those which are here exemplified in the Fed, was hurled out of existence. After the downfall of the Second Bank of the United States in 1837, keep in mind these dates, write them down, look them up. The country was warned against the dangers that might ensue if the predatory interests, after being cast out, should come back in disguise and unite themselves to the executive, and through him acquire control of the government. That is what the predatory interests did when they came back in, the livery of hypocrisy and under false pretenses obtained the passage of the Federal Reserve Act. The danger that the country was warned against came upon us and is shown in the long train of horrors attendant upon the affairs of the traitorous and dishonest Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks. Look around you when you leave this chamber, and you will see evidences of it in all sides. This is an era of economic misery, and for the conditions that cause that misery, the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve banks are fully liable. And this is, again, L.T McFadden speaking in the House of Representatives. This is an era of finance crime, and in the financing of crime, the Federal Reserve Board does not play the part of a disinterested spectator. It has been said that the draftman who was employed to write the text of the Federal Reserve Bill used the text of the Aldrich Bill for his purpose. It has been said that the language of the Aldrich Bill was used because the Aldrich Bill had been drawn up by expert lawyers and seemed to be appropriate. It was indeed drawn up by lawyers. The Aldrich Bill was created by acceptance bankers of European origin in New York City. It was a copy, in general, a translation of the statutes of the Reichsbank and other European central banks. And that's Reichsbanks, and you take that back to Nazi, or the Third and Fourth Reich and all that before then. So it was the Reichsbank. Keep that in mind. Look in the Reichsbank, and it says number 1 by that. Before we continue, it says Reichsbank 1. So I go down to the ledger and see 1. The Reichsbank was the central bank of Germany from 1876 until 1945. Keep that one in mind. What happened in 1945? There was a war going on, right? It was founded on January 1st, 1876, shortly after the establishment of the German Empire in 1871. The Reichsbank was a privately owned central bank of Prussia, or whatever it says, Prussia, Prussia, which is a bank, or Germany and coast parts right there, under close control by the Reich government. Its first president was Hermann von Dechen, or Dechen. It's hard to pronounce German, but D-E-C-H-E-N-D, Dechen. All right, I guess. But before unification in 1871, Germany had 31 central banks. The Notenbanken, or note banks. Each of the independent states issued their own money. In 1870, a law was passed that forbade the formation of further central banks. And then we go back up and continue the speech by L.T McFadden. $500,000 was spent on one part of the propaganda organized by those same European bankers for the purpose of misleading public opinion in regard to it, and for the purpose of giving Congress the impression there was an overwhelming popular demand for that kind of banking legislation and the kind of currency that goes with it, namely an asset currency based on human debt and obligations. Dr. H. Parker Willis had been employed by the Wall Street bankers and propagandists, and when the Aldrich measure came to naught, he obtained employment from Carter Glass to assist in drawing up a banking bill for the Wilson administration. He appropriated the Aldrich bill for this purpose. There is no secret about it. The text of the Federal Reserve Act was tainted from the beginning. Not all of the Democratic members of the 63rd Congress voted for this Great Depression, or even deception, as I could say. Some of them remembered the teachings of Jefferson. Senator Henry Cabot Lodge wrote, "The bill, as it stands, seems to me to open the way to a vast inflation of the currency." We're not going to tally long. I got a couple more seconds here on the camera, but It's a lot that we can get into. He has a lot to say, and it was a. Let's continue here. A few days before the bill came to a vote, Senator Henry Cabot Lodge of Massachusetts wrote to Senator John W. Weeks as follows. Oh, I gotta look at that name for those who know me. Senator John W. Weeks. All right, as follows. New York City, December 17th, 1913. 1913 now. Keep this in mind, family. 1913 now. All right, we can go back and see when the prophet incorporated the Canaanite temple. My dear Senator Weeks, throughout my public life, I have supported all measures designed to take the government out of the banking business. This bill puts the government into the banking business as never before in our history. The powers vested in the Federal Reserve Board seem, to me, highly dangerous, especially where there is political control of the board. I should be sorry to hold stock in a bank subject to such dominations. The bill as it stands seems to me to open up the way to a vast inflation of the currency. I had hoped to support this bill, but I cannot vote for it because it seems to me to contain features and to rest upon principles in the highest degree menacing to our prosperity, to stability in business, and to the general welfare of the people of the United States. Very truly yours, Senator Henry Cabot Lodge. In the 18 years that have passed since Senator Lodge wrote that letter of warning, all of his predictions have come true. The government is in the banking business as never before. Against its will, it has been made the backer of horse thieves and card sharps, bootleggers, smugglers, speculators, and swindlers in all parts of the world. Through the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks, the riffraff of every country is operating on the public credit of the United States government. The Great Depression. And just remember with the Great Depression, okay? The Great Depression. Meanwhile, and on an account of it, we ourselves are in the midst of the greatest depression we have ever known. Thus, the menace to our prosperity, so feared by Senator Lodge, has indeed struck home. From the Atlantic to the Pacific, our country has been ravaged and laid waste by the evil practices of the Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks, and the interests which control them. At no time in our history has the general welfare of the people of the United States been at a level lower, or the mind of the people so filled with despair. 60,000 confiscated houses and farms auctioned in a single day. Now, check this out. Even back then, in the early 1900s, 60,000 confiscated houses and farms auctioned in a single day. Recently, in one of our states, 60,000 dwelling homes or houses and farms were bought under the hammer in a single day. 71,000 houses and farms in Oakland County, Michigan were sold and their erstwhile owners disposed or dispositioned and dispossessed. Similar occurrences have probably taken place in every county in the United States. The people who have thus been driven out of the wastage of the Federal Reserve Act. They are the victims of the dishonest and unscrupulous Federal Reserve Board and the Federal Reserve Banks. Their children are the new slaves of the auction block in the revival here of the institution of human slavery. The scheme of the Fed. And then we're going to pause on that and come on back. Wow, it's a lot, especially dealing with the German banks. So that should let you know that I want to make a assertion here that they say Germany lost the war. And I contest, and I want to say that I don't think Germany lost the war. Actually, I think they kind of won the war, to be truthful, because it's a lot, and they have a lot of ties with Germany. The so-called United States company has a lot of ties with Germany. Okay, but we're going to get into this, and then we'll continue with this Congressman McFadden speech, and it's a lot of pages coming from different times where he spoke in the House. Okay, the scheme of the Fed. In 1913, again, pay attention to that time. In 1913, before the Senate Banking and Currency Committee, Mr. Alexander Lassen, Lassen, made the following statement. The whole scheme of the Fed with its commercial paper is an impractical, cumbersome machinery. It's simply a cover to secure the privilege of issuing money and to evade payment of as much tax upon circulation as possible, and then control the issue and maintain instead of reducing interest rates. It will prove to the advantage of the few and the detriment of the people. It will mean continued shortage of actual money and further extension of credit. For when there is a shortage of money, people have to borrow to their cost. A few days before the Fed passed, Senator Root, R-O-O-T, denounced the Fed as an outrage on our liberties. He predicted, long before we wake up from our dream of prosperity through an inflated currency, our gold, which alone could have kept us from catastrophic and catastrophe, will have vanished, and no rate of interest will tempt to return it. If ever a prophecy came true, that one did. The Fed became law the day before Christmas Eve in the year 1913, and shortly afterwards, the German international bankers Kohn, Loeb and Company, Kuhn, Loeb and Company, sent one of their partners here to run it. The Fed note is essentially unsound. It is the worst currency and the most dangerous that this country has ever known. When the proponents of the act saw that the Democratic doctrine would not permit them to let the proposed banks issue the new currency as banknotes, they should have stopped at that. They should not have foisted that kind of currency, namely an asset currency, on the United States government. They should not have made the government liable on the private debts of individuals and corporations, and least of all on the private debt of foreigners. As Kemmerer says, Kemmerer, Kemmerer, the Fed notes, therefore, in form, have some of the qualities of government paper money, but in substance are almost a pure asset currency possessing a government guarantee against which contingency the government has made no provision whatsoever. And I'm going to jump back up because it says the Kohn, Loeb and Company, and that is the Kohn, Loeb and Company was a bulge bracket investment bank founded in 1867 by Abraham Kohn and Solomon Loeb under the leadership of Jacob H. Scriff. It grew to be one of the most influential investment banks in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, financing America's expanding railways and growth companies, including Western Union and Westinghouse, and thereby becoming the principal rival of J.P. Morgan and Company. So, right in there, as we can stop right here, as we can see, and we'll continue when we come back on the next show, because this paper is long, and as they say, pause. It's long. these papers are long. So, but I do want to talk about if we can know that it's as we can tell from what we've been reading and what we've been hearing, it's a lot of influence of Germany into the Feds, because it was ran when it became law. And the moment it became law, as I said, they sent bankers from Germany to come over and run it. So that tells me, as a thinker, like that whole going to war all the way up into 1945 was a farce. Yes, lives has been lost, and I'm not saying that it has not. Of course, you're going to have casualties of war. It's a play, but it's a real play. And so people will die, and but I'm just saying that I think it was all a ploy. Like, I still know that if you go back and you look at Germany and you see their animal that represented them, their bird was an eagle. And the quote-unquote United States company bird is a what? An eagle. So it's not really hard to figure out. It's in plain sight. It's right up under here, right up under here, right up under the nose. And we can't see it, or we refuse to see it. They have ties, to Germany. And again, I want to read the Reichsbank was a central bank of Germany that was formed from 1876 until 1945. Now, y'all do the math, do the history of that 1945. Of course, we know that's World War II and, Hitler and all that. So look into that as I implore you to. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on around 1913 up until 1928 and into 1929, when the Prophet Sheik Sharif Abdul Noble Jew Ali made his transition, or they took him out, to be truthful. But that's another story in itself, because a lot of things he did was changing and bringing it back to us, as they were taking it away from us, because they were taking the gold. Gold is the real currency, the real money. We could say money is gold and silver coins. And when I say earlier about the 25 cent for the card and the 50 cent for your dues, those were actual silver coins, silver dollars. Those were the dollars. So, and of course we still had, gold and everything, but, silver and coins, gold and silver coinage and dollars were and are and still is real money, or the money. In Germany, if you can Google Germany's gold backwardation, and that Germany wanted to get their gold back from the quote unquote United States company, and they gave them the middle finger, said no, hell no. And, the company wasn't giving it back. So it's a lot to go into that, and we will come back to continue this L.T McFadden speech on the floor, because it's a lot of pages here now, and it's a really good read, I'm telling you. And then it goes all the way up until 1928, because I passed a couple of papers here, and I'm gonna just read something that says, for every dollar that advanced on discounts in 1928, now keep in mind that 1928, they lent $33 to their favorite banks, for whom they do business, of several $billion income tax on their profit to the United States. So that's a little bit further ahead, and I want to jump ahead because this is a good read. So we'll come back on the next show and continue this read. It's a good read, y'all. So please join me again on the next time, on the next show. Thank you for joining me. And I will be bringing back Moorish American hip hop top 10 music videos. I'll bring that back, and again, I will bring back partner interjection. But I have to take care of some things. I'm doing classes. I'm a safety professional in construction, so I got to keep that up to keep my classes and keep my credentials up as well. So, but we will return on the next show, continuing again. Congressman L.T McFadden speech. So I will say thank you. Stay safe. Look out for each other and yourselves. And all love be to all. Peace.